Hello guys, I have the Quality of Life March 2025 game update for you. Let's start. Let's start with the single base game exclusive fix, which is they fixed the crash when using the triage code. I will now tell you about the fixes and improvements of all versions. If there are DLC specific ones, I will show it in the top left corner. Just a quick disclaimer here, I feel like there haven't been that much interesting changes, but a lot of fixes that are hard to show. Let's start with the changes to the game mechanics. They changed the way that liquids get displaced in the simulation. This will fix some of the duplication methods that we already know. As you can see, we do have exactly 60 gram in this area here and 60 gram in this area here, split to 45 and 15 gram, which normally should give us a perfectly fine working liquid duplication glitch, but it seems that a new displacement of the liquids fixed that. The change notes also state that they fixed a bunch of bugs, including some veteran ones like the liquid duplication. But they also specify that they fixed the liquid duplication caused by a falling liquid. So this right here. So there's still hope that you can come up with a new duplication glitch if you want that. By the way, the changes in behavior of liquid displacement has no effect on our liquid infinite storages. Let me just get rid of this here. We do have a little bit of crude oil here and we can still pump in the petroleum right through the crude oil because it is a less dense liquid and it will get displaced when put out here to the next tile on top. And because I know that you won't be happy until I show you the infinite gas storages, they work fine as well, just like always. Let's overpressure them a little bit so you can see it. Yeah, normal behavior here as well. Now that we have the bad news out of the way, we can continue with the more pleasant changes. For example, the bottle emptier not being able to emptying milligrams. Now, they should be able to. I couldn't really test this. This is 10 gram, because I can't even spawn in milligrams. Here, this is 1000 milligram, as you can see here, but it just disappears. So we just gotta trust Clay with this one. They also fixed the bug where duplicants could slip when walking over a mesh tile that has slippery liquid inside of it. So this was filled with gunk and no duplicant actually slipped. They improved the performance by reducing the memory allocated during the autosweeper update. Another performance improvement point is they reduced the number of memory allocations per frame in various systems of the game. And something about new conduit flow computation algorithms, which I have no clue, so just believe them. And now to the visual changes or visual effects. They added a visual feedback to liquids that are heating up. So they updated the liquid visual effect, including special visuals when approaching the boiling point. So not sure you can see that with the feed oil because it is already overheating and changing states. But let's wait for the other elements. So this here is reaching boiling point, but you can not see any changes in the visuals. So this here is almost at boiling point, but I cannot see any special visuals at the moment. Nope. Let's check this again, but this time with the liquid tepidizers. I think you can see a change here in the ethanol. There are tiny little bubbles like it is actually boiling. So it is working if you use the liquid tepidizer, at least for ethanol. Oh yeah, we could see it boiling here right before it flashed. So this time I put some checkered drywall and some liquid reservoirs behind the liquids. Let's see if we can see the boiling points now. So the ethanol just flashed without showing us any indications that it was boiling. So, no, it does not work. And no, there's no visual indication from the heat boiling the water. Apparently it is just tied. Oh, no, yeah, there could be something. It is just wobbling slightly and gone. No boiling bubbles, nothing. At least the ethanol in combination with the liquid tepidizers seems to work. You can clearly see the bubbles right here forming right now. By the way, the boiling point of ethanol is 78.4 degrees Celsius. So it's almost there. And of course it is nighttime when I'm recording this. Thank you, game. So this seems to work, at least with a tapidizer. But it does not work with a regular heat transfer through other materials, for example. Another change to the liquid visual effects is that the water shader distortion effect is no longer affected by the camera zoom level. They fixed the bug where the liquid on special tiles, like airflow tiles for example, was shown as if it was hovering over the tile, which was not the intended behavior. I thought this was just how it was intended to look like. Now it looks like this, or on a smaller scale, like this. By the way, this is how liquid crude oil looks, and solid crude oil now looks like this, because they changed the artwork. Here you can see it without the tiles around it. Another change to the visuals and or descriptions is that the building requirement texts, for example for this supercomputer, are now much clearer. You can see here to the right that the assigned duplicant must possess the advanced research skill. You can also check this by going to the database, scrolling down to requirements, and then hovering over the skilled duplicant operation. It will then tell you that you will need the advanced research skill or the researching booster if you have a bionic duplicant. Speaking about research, they stabilized the ordering of items in the research screen and in the build menu. While we are here, they also made the search function much smarter. So if you go there and type in critter, for example, it will show you all the critter traps and grooming stations and stuff that is important to the critters. Or if we type in fort instead of water fort, it will still show you the critter thingy, which is helpful. And if you're outside of the research screen and for example look for the microbe musher, you can just type in MM for microbe musher and then you can place it down anywhere you want. Let's test this with a few more things. For example, aquatuner, AT for aquatuner, yeah, does work. Or steam turbine, yeah, steam turbine, there it is. Very helpful, nice. Let's quickly cover the database changes and then let's continue with something more tangible. If you click on a duplicant, you can see that the database entry available is still grayed out. But if you go to the database and type in duplicant, we now have entries for our lovely little duplicants. The entries are split into standard duplicants and the bionic duplicants and whatever duplicants may follow in the future. It covers their basic needs, work optimization, a specific section for the bionic duplicants covering their basic needs and their work optimization, and all of their quirky little behaviors can be checked by pressing the respective buttons. For example, for food, you can see all the foods. Stress will take you to the stress and stress responses wiki, and if you go to sleep, it should also cover health right now, because the update notes state that the health entry is now in the systems, including information about the sleep requirements, which is down here. The printing pod database entry now has a picture of the printing pod in it, and they added building icons to the building category database entry. Databanks and microchips could you please now also correctly link to the right database entry. And now to the robots. They fixed the Biobot, which is base game, the Flydo, which is the bionic booster pack, the Sweepy, which is also base game, and the Rover, which is spaced out DLC, in the following ways. The Biobots, Rovers and Flydos now actually do lower priority chores instead of idling around. The Sweepy on the other hand was sometimes not picking up items when moving, so they fixed that. And then there have been a lot of fixes to the Flydo robot. The Flydo recipe should now be consistent with its own mass. So 200 kg of ingredients, and if we check out the Flydo themselves, properties, 200 kg of mass. In case you had Flydos in your base and they were not doing anything, that is because sometimes they were not eligible for certain tasks or errands. Now that is fixed and they should do whatever they're told to, so let's see if they transport the beds, into the storage bin. Not a good task, but at least they do the only task that is available inside of here. They also fixed the crash when the power banks in the Flydo were depleting, and they also changed that they move erratically as soon as the power bank was depleted. So that is fixed now. Though they also fixed the bug that when they were not shutting down because you gave a priority task, like this, they were staying active even though they had no more energy left. That is fixed now as well. And now one important and one smaller change to the atmosuits. They fixed the bug causing the element of the worn atmosuits to change to dirt after being repaired, which probably has to do with the developer setup. So if I spot an atmosuit right now, It is also made out of dirt, so that is probably why that happened. And secondly, they fixed some text misalignment on the buttons here on the side screen. From Atmosuit's 2 rockets, there have been 4 fixes for the Spaced Out DLC. For example, they resized some of the buttons, one of them being the Launch Rocket UI button and one being the Abandon Ship Rocket UI button that appears once you are in space. This one down here, as well as the space exposure surrounding a rocket interior not working correctly. But one of the more important fixes is that if you are in your rocket, in space, with a Trailblazer module, and you try to select one of the deceased duplicants, so in our case Ellie or Eduardo, then the game could crash. First off, now you can't select dead duplicants, which of course makes sense. And for the Bionic Booster DLC, in this rocket for example, we do have Stila. They fixed a crash that could occur if you try to send down a Bionic duplicant with the Trailblazer module. Let's see if this works. No crash here, just unhappy duplicants. They fixed an issue where an incubator whose eggs had recently been removed would request the egg when loading the save again. Haven't had that, but if some of you had that, hopefully it is fixed now. As for the rooms, the power plant room, this yellow one here, does not require the power control station building. So the power control station itself no longer claims that it is necessary to produce a power plant room. So as you can see, nothing in here. And if we go to the power plant, it just tells you the requirements of heavy duty generators, 2 or more power buildings, and a minimum size and maximum size. The power control station is no longer in there. Of course, it still makes sense to combine those two. By the way, this is not a real setup. This is dev mode. I put in hot stuff down here. This is just to showcase what I mean. And now to the power. In the power overlay, the power icon for under construction and the placement preview should now be consistent. So this one here and this one here should be the same. Well, they almost are, if I understood it correctly. I'm not completely sure. I don't really understand the next one, but when the power circuits are rebuilt, for example disconnected and reconnected via construction, like this one here, then the current load on all circuits is set to an invalid value of -1. The wire side screen will display this as a question mark, which it does not, and the wattage sensor will now not change its automation state until it receives a valid value from the wire it is monitoring. So when the power circuits are rebuilt and they name the examples, the network is disconnected or reconnected either via construction, as you've just seen, deconstruction, or circuit breaker. And this one here is a circuit breaker or a power shutoff, and this one here as well. And something should be different to before. So it shows us the potential load of 10 watts from the ceiling light and the potential load of 0 because we cut the cable right here. Potential load of 10, 0, cut it. Potential load of 10, 0. Sensor not activated, sensor activated. Not sure what this is about, I have no clue. It is above my pay grade. Now to the critter fixes. They fixed an issue causing the critters to recalculate their food target more often than necessary. So this Draco should not calculate the search for the food as often as before, saving hopefully a few frames. They fixed the top of the fish feeder not visually updating correctly. And they also fixed the Pacu not eating the seeds from a newly built fish feeder. And as you could clearly see, the Pacu are eating from the seeds. FRD seems very happy, but that is just because they can't see all the germs that they're submerged in. Exposure to slime lungs. Let's just wait for them to get sick, because that's the next point. Rate of contracting slime lung is at 18%. Let's give you a little bit of oxalate. So the dupes have been here for days now. Let's just get them out. The reason I did this was because they fixed an issue causing some symptoms of slime lung to persist even after the duplicants have been cured. So I wanted to try that, but it's pretty hard to get a dupe sick. So they just were inside of this. I have had them eat contaminated food, and even the oxygen has a lot of slime lung in it that comes from the oxalate. So yeah, still happy as you can see. Nobody cares. Speaking about sicknesses, bionic duplicants, this one here, can now also contract diseases. They should now be able to get sick from germ exposure. So let's just, could you please not move? Where is the button? There it is. Let's just have Potato Sun stay there for a while. And yeah, cleaning this won't help, my man. At least you have something to do. Could this be used for training, by the way? This is a good way to train whatever cleaning skill uses. Well, for a normal duplicant, not for the bionic duplicant. Let me just read you the rest of the fixes and the changes to the bionic duplicants. They fixed an issue where the slime lung would cause a bionic duplicant's breath to decrease incorrectly. And they also fixed the bug where bionic duplicants could consume like disease-tainted oxygen canisters, so a regular oxygen canister that is full of germs. And they were not transferring the disease to their internal oxygen tanks, so now that happens. Now they can get sick from that. They fixed an issue causing the bionic duplicants to appear to contract food poisoning despite being immune to all of the symptoms of food poisoning. So they can contract some of the diseases, but not all of them because they technically don't need to eat. Are you sick now? No, not even a little. They just don't care. The gunk extractor now applies germs to the bionic duplicants after use. And the room bonus from the gunk extractor now lasts for 3 cycles. So let's just, come on, get our lovely potatoes on. There we are. Check the germs. Yeah, it applied food poisoning germs for some reason. Why food poisoning? Okay, so let's check this again. Checking the germs. Of course, there are a lot of, yeah, food poisoning germs. Instantly created. Good to know. Potatoes on, what is your morale now? Washroom, +2. The room bonus from the gunk extractor now lasts 3 cycles. Okay then. They also fixed the bug that caused the bionic duplicants to not use the assigned gunk extractors if there was a hospital room somewhere in your base. So that works now. If we put a bionic duplicant into a lot of radiation, like this, and they get sick, they are able to suffer from all tiers of the radiation sickness, even though they are still immune to stamina and bathroom use speed effect reduction. So that does not apply to them, but the rest does apply to them. So let's get them, where is it? Get them here. Which brings us to our next point, that duplicants that were so highly radiated that you could not even save them because carrying them to the triage code just had them drop down again. But now, as soon as they're dropped inside of the triage code, the deadly level of radiation will now drop and be reduced to an extreme level, which is just 600 in that case. So let's test this again, but this time with a normal duplicant. For example, our lovely Brian B here. There you go, Brian. Maybe we give you a little bit of oxalite. There you go, Brian B. Drop you off right here. Check your radiation levels. You got 900 reds currently being transported to... What the heck happened? They seem to be fine enough to go to the toilet. Okay, which also reduces it by 100. Then go back to your room. Let's increase it a little bit more. 1811. Let's drop him again. Do not allow them to go outside. And then wait for the doctor. And the radiation dose immediately dropped down to 600. So with this fix, you can now save every duplicant that has a radiation overdose. Not like before. We know that from the bugs and exploits let's play. Now to a few Frosty Planet Pack DLC only changes. The Behemoth, this hairy little thing here, so they fixed the issue with the Behemoth animation to just clip into the wall. They fixed an issue where the ice meteor showers didn't contain any meteors. I just spawned them in via dev mode because waiting for one would take too long, but apparently they fixed it. And last but not least, if you go to the supply closet with the Frosty Planet Pack DLC board, and you go to artwork maybe, there are now a few new monument blueprints, like the giant squash with the duplicant standing on top of it, a beautiful crystal, and the Behemoth poo. The rest here is Bionic duplicant specific. Let's check out the middle part. We do have, oh, these are nice. And a spigot seal as well, and a little grabby hand here. As for the heads, we do have Freya, beautiful, Pei, also beautiful, and Liam. Liam with his petty similar hair. If you play with the Spaced Out DLT and the Bionic Booster Pack, you can use the Atomic Power Bank to power different things. And the Atomic Power Bank, as you know, has a lifetime of around 100 cycles. And once at the end of the lifetime, it will blow up. What Clay did now is they added a diagnostics that signals when the Atomic Power Bank is nearing the end of its lifetime. So can we actually choose the power bank, or will it be a sound, or will it be a pop-up? I don't know. I don't want to wait for 100 cycles. To make this one short, if anyone knows what happens after 100 cycles, if it is a sound or a pop-up, just let us know down in the comments. Another thing that is exclusive to the Bionic Booster Pack, the skill screen or the booster management. So if we go to the skill screen now and check out our lovely lamp, we can now, oh this is nice, we can now unplug some of the boosters by clicking on them. They will drop down. You can click on the booster and reassign it. Lamb will just reinstall the booster. Now we can go back to the skills. Let's just add a few booster, research booster and a strength booster, and then check out Lamb again. Now it shows how many are available, and if we click on the research booster, yeah, it automatically gets applied, as you can see here, which makes it so much easier. That's nice. Now we can throw out a digging booster and throw in a strength booster twice, and check this out. Number 1 and number 2. And now our lovely lamb has a strength of 10. And the last change for today has to do with the world generation in Spaced Out only. So let's just try this again. Survival, Spaced Out, the superconductive asteroid, which is this one down here. Had minor changes to the world generation. The mining room point of interest on the superconductive asteroid now has no oxygen, and they changed the material of the doors, which is now steel. Covering this update felt a little bit weird. Not a lot tangible changes to the game, but a whole bunch of fixes that only some people understand. I think for the next video I will go back to only covering the most important fixes and fill the rest with the usual more interesting parts of the updates. But let me know what you think, which parts of the updates I should cover down in the comments.